The case we're going to delve into today is such a tragedy. It is unique in that one person is dead and two are missing, seemingly from the same event. More than 30 years later, there is still no definitive answers. The only thing that hasn't faded in that time is the pain of the three families involved. Let's talk about Dub and Chance Wackerhagen. I will say up front that I will detail the facts of this case as always, but the main focus I wanted was to share things from the missing child's mother's point of view. In my many conversations with her over the last few years, it is so obvious how shattering this has been to her, and she still has difficulty speaking of it. She has been treated unfairly at times in the past, on the internet in particular, and I think that's very unfortunate. She doesn't want attention for herself, but just wants to find her son. I think that people will be surprised at the lengths she's gone to and the strength she has had to find over the years to keep going and fighting. She's a true inspiration. The person I'm referring to is Gay Walshak, Chance Wackerhagen's mother. I want to thank her so much for taking the time to speak with me over the years for my article and now my podcast. Lee Herman Wackerhagen Jr., nicknamed Dub, and Gay were never officially married, so it was considered a common law relationship. They met when Dub was working for Gay's father. The relationship went smoothly in the beginning, and Gay gave birth to a son, Chance Lee Wackerhagen, in 1984. The couple's relationship grew increasingly volatile over the years. Gay says that Dub was verbally abusive, but never physically violent with her. His controlling nature and fear that their fighting would continue to escalate in front of Chance and her other son from a previous relationship was what prompted her to divorce Dub in 1993. Dub did seek custody of Chance, but ultimately Gay was awarded primary custody and Dub was to see Chance on the weekends. Dub lived 4 hours from Gay, and initially they would fly Chance back and forth between locations, but Chance didn't really like that. They then decided to use the drop-off location of Dub's aunt's house to avoid any conflict. This arrangement seemed to be going smoothly. Then in late 1993, Chance was to spend some time with his father for Christmas, but unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Dub Wackerhagen in late 1993 was dating a 38-year-old woman named Latricia White. The couple had known each other for many years and went to school together. After both going through recent divorces, they reconnected and were living together in Latricia's small house in rural McMahon, Texas, very near Lockhart. Dub and Latricia appeared to have an interesting dynamic. They were known to fight frequently. In fact, just a few days before this terrible incident, a friend at their house witnessed them having a huge fight regarding Chance, with Dub threatening to move out. However, Dub, Chance, and Latricia were seen together at a restaurant soon after, and all seemed to be having a good time. Latricia White was a devoted nurse who was recently divorced with a son and daughter. By all accounts, she was a loving mother and highly thought of in the community, the kind of person who had no enemies. Or did she? Chance Wackerhagen, who was 9 years old at the time, was to go to Dub and Latricia's house to spend a few days and return on December 25th. He was having a good time at his dad's, so he phoned Gay and asked his mother if he could stay a few more days. Gay agreed to let him extend his stay. She was doing what any good mother would do, letting her son spend extra time with his dad for the holidays. Yet it is a decision she still regrets and haunts her to this day. The next phone call Gay remembers receiving was on December 27, 1993, 2 days after the call from Chance. It was the police department. They wanted to know if Chance was with her. She told them no, that he was with his father. Then she learned the horrible news. Latricia's coworkers and family had become concerned when she didn't show up for work, which was very uncharacteristic for her. Latricia's father drove out to her house and to his horror finds his daughter. She was in bed, dead, shot 6 times in the head with a .22 caliber weapon, apparently while she slept. There didn't appear to be any signs of a struggle in the house, but there was some blood on the floor in what seemed to be Chance's footprints. But where were Dub and Chance? 30 years later, we still don't know the answer to that question. So one of the two people in a volatile relationship is discovered dead, and the other person goes missing along with his young son. Dub's truck was also missing. Police seem to have their mind made up pretty quickly. In fact, just 3 days after Latricia was found murdered, there was an arrest warrant out for Dub. The charges were custodial interference for not returning Chance to Gay, as well as first-degree murder. Another surprising turn of events 3 days after Latricia's body was found was the discovery of Dub's truck. It was about 30 minutes away from Latricia's house in a known high-crime area of Austin, Texas. The contents inside proved to be quite unsettling. Dub's checkbook, wallet, and hunting rifle, which had not been fired, were inside. Even more disturbing was a discovery in the back of the truck of Christmas presents, both opened and unopened, with what Gay was later told was a significant amount of blood, not just streaked as is usually reported on them. Preliminary tests did exclude the blood being from Latricia's, as it wasn't her type. Gay says it was told to her the blood in the back of the truck belonged to two different people who were related. The question still remains, what went on in the truck in the 3 days before it was discovered? Police seem convinced that Dub had killed Latricia in a fit of rage after another one of their heated arguments. They believed he took Chance with him and searched for the father and son. It was thought that with Dub's connections in the trucking industry, he would be able to make money pretty easily to sustain him and his son. There was also a lot of accusations that Dub's family was helping him on the run, perhaps even sending him money, but they were always adamant they hadn't heard from him since he went missing and did not help him in any way. They didn't believe he was capable of killing Latricia either. A few interesting things came up in the months after the pair went missing to give the families hope they were still alive. 4 months after Latricia's murder, Gay's father, Chance's grandfather, received a call at his home with a small boy saying, "Help me, help me." At the time, he was convinced it was his grandson's voice, but now they believe it was just a cruel hoax. The police also reported there was a phone call made from a phone in Dub's truck during the 3 days before it was discovered, which was a significant piece of evidence. It wasn't known who made the phone call or who it was to, but I'll mention something very interesting about that phone call a bit later. That whole time was a blur for Gay. She has very limited memories of what went on around the initial disappearance, possibly her mind blocking it out because of the immense pain. She was briefly interviewed when the story was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, yet she doesn't even remember doing the interview. She does remember showing up at Latricia's house, where Ewan went to do some filming, but said she wasn't allowed to go inside. She did keep a cordial relationship with Dub's family over the years, as they both wanted the same thing, to find their loved ones. Even though Gay had her share of problems with Dub and for years thought he probably did shoot Latricia in the heat of an argument, she was always steadfast that he wouldn't have hurt Chance. He was a devoted father to him, so Gay held on to the hope they were on the run, possibly in Mexico, and would hopefully surface someday. Yet she was still angry that her son had been taken away from her and worked tirelessly to try to find him. She hired a PI to try to track them down, went on the Maury Povich show, and was even invited to appear on the Oprah Winfrey show, but due to a new job, couldn't make it. She would reach out to anyone and do anything she could. She has and continues to this day to do countless hours of research and reaching out to people in hopes of finding her son. When there was a possible sighting of Chance, she would drop everything to investigate it. She remembers an alleged sighting of Chance in Alpine, Texas, shortly after the disappearance. She went to the school there and looked through yearbooks at all the pictures of the children, but didn't find Chance among them. With the year after year of dead ends, the pain just intensifies. She, to this day, continues to reach out to any TV shows or people she thinks might publicize the case and comments on any mention of her son's case on the internet or social media. Sometimes she must comment to correct misinformation, but is always appreciative of anyone bringing attention to his disappearance. Then in 2015, more than 20 years after her son's disappearance, she would receive a phone call from law enforcement that would completely turn her world upside down. There was a twist in this tragic case that no one saw coming. In 2015, Gay was contacted by a Texas Ranger who had been reinvestigating the case. He had noticed problems with the initial investigation and told her the shocking news. He now believed Dub and Chance Wackerhagen were victims of foul play and were unfortunately deceased and had been for all of these years. What wasn't initially reported in a rush in judgment to blame Latricia's murder on Dub was that Latricia was just coming out of a divorce and custody battle. Latricia's ex-husband was now being looked at as a possible person of interest in her murder, as well as the disappearance of Dub and Chance. The ranger also told Gay the ex had even admitted to going to Latricia's house the last day she was known to be alive to retrieve something his child had left, but claims no one answered the door. I will note that Latricia's house was in a rural area at the end of a dead-end road, so not an area that got a lot of traffic. In conversations with Dub's family, Gay also learned that Dub's family had mentioned Latricia's ex to the police when the murder occurred as someone they should look into. It appears that the investigation, initially anyway, suffered from a case of tunnel vision. This information the ranger told Gay was then released to the media in 2016. Not in the detail that I have mentioned, but that they believed it was someone closely associated with Latricia and that Dub and Chance were also victims of foul play. It was also revealed to Gay that there was an error in the report that a phone call was made from Dub's truck in the 3 days the truck was unaccounted for. Gay was told the phone call in question was actually made a year prior to the disappearance. After all of these years, perhaps Dub Wackerhagen would now be vindicated for being labeled a murderer for the last 25 years. It appears, though, that even though there is another possible suspect in her murder and possibly the murder of Dub and Chance, there isn't enough evidence currently to bring charges, and without finding their bodies, there may never be an arrest. As you can imagine, the revelation from the Texas Ranger was completely shattering to Gay. She's appreciative that the now retired Texas Ranger showed the compassion of reaching out and telling her the truth. As far as the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department, however, she feels very angry and betrayed. She believed she had been lied to for years. She also believes that they were alerted to this possible domestic situation in Latricia's life from the beginning and either didn't research it fully enough or chose to downplay it and put the blame on her ex. This has let her live with the false hope that Chance was alive out there somewhere and believes she could find him and bring him home. She has now sadly had to accept the fact that her beloved son is almost certainly deceased. But that doesn't lessen her resolve in one way or another to find her son and bring him home. I wanted to share with you a few quotes from Gay herself in an effort to try to imagine the pain she must live with every day. Special thanks to my daughter Morgan for being the voice of Gay in this podcast.
You ask how I feel sometimes. Sadness, anger, guilt, and the list could go on. Every Christmas I have to put on a happy face because of my grandchildren, but it is so difficult. Then guilt overwhelms me, knowing I could not protect my son, and still to this day, I cannot get justice for him. I also live with the guilt that I neglected my other son because of this tragedy. People say, I can only imagine what you go through, but the thing is, no imagination can ever know what a mother goes through until they do.
I do want to talk a little about Dub Wackerhagen's family. First off, I do know that it has been reported that his father committed suicide in 1999. People have tried to connect this to Dub's disappearance somehow, but from what Gay understands, the suicide was probably related to a recent cancer diagnosis he had been given. When researching for my article a few years ago, I had reached out to Dub's sister Barbara to get some thoughts on the case. She was initially open to speaking to me about it, but in the end, I think it was just too painful to relive those days. Combined with the fact that sadly, Dub's other sister had also passed away, it was just too much. She did text me this concerning her thoughts about the case. Dub and Chance did not disappear. They are dead. The whole case was mishandled, and everyone was chasing a ghost. Gay and her family and my family have lost our loved ones. We want justice for them and the person that did it. Thanks, Barbara. I also wanted to include a letter that Gay wrote and sent to the man she believes is responsible for the murder of her son.
I am the mother of Chance Wackerhagen. I am writing to you in hopes you will find it in your heart to let me know where my son's body is. Years ago, I was told you killed my son. For many years, all I wanted was for you to pay and know the pain I was feeling. I then realized nothing is going to bring Chance back to me. The only thing I hope for now is closure. Finding his body and bringing him home is the only thing that will give me closure. I know you are a father and should realize how I feel. Chance's body needs to come home to me and be buried in the family cemetery. I don't believe you meant to kill Chance. I don't care if you ever pay for what you have done because I truly believe you pay for it every day of your life. I am not asking you to confess or turn yourself in. In any means you see fit, I am asking you to somehow just let me know where Chance's body is. From one parent to another, I hope you can understand how I feel. I know your son is very important to you, so you should understand what I am asking of you. Please find it in your heart to do this for me. I do not believe you really meant to hurt anyone. Things got out of control and all you wanted to do was protect your son. God bless you in making your decision. Sincerely, Gay Walshack.
So, after all of these years of Dub Wackerhagen being portrayed as a killer, it seems very possible that he, along with his young son, was a victim. Dub's story and perspective haven't really been given much attention. I'm hoping to change that with my next guest. I am pleased to welcome Dub Wackerhagen's good friend Thad Reagan. Thad, I'm so glad that you've agreed to speak with me for this podcast. How long had you known Dub?
I met Dub the day after Chance was born.
Oh, okay. And I was going to say how you met, but you met because you knew people in the family, or?
We were both loading cattle at King Ranch going to California.
Oh, okay.
And he was late because his son was being born.
Oh,
yeah. And that's where I met him,
and how would you describe Dub?
I would describe him as a big old gentle giant. He was just a big guy that was just had a real, he was just a very kind touch.
Yeah. What did Dub think about being a dad? Did he speak of Chance often?
Oh, yeah. He carried him with him as often as he could.
Yeah. So, what did Dub ever talk to you about Latricia?
I was with Dub when we went to pick Chance up a week before they went missing.
Yeah.
And he was talking about making a life with her and going to fix up that house, and they were going to live there.
Now, they were living in one house, but Dub was fixing up another one, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. How far away was this house that Dub was working on?
Lockhart and Maxwell. It's probably 15, 20 miles.
Okay. Now, did they have a rocky relationship, Latricia and Dub?
Yeah, it wasn't all, wasn't all sugar candy. It was ups and downs.
Yeah, they talked about some of their yelling, some of it was in public, but yet, they definitely seemed to go out when they were getting along well too.
Right.
Did he ever say anything to you about Latricia's ex?
If he did, I don't really remember. Really never talked about him.
Yeah. So, when was the last time that you talked to Dub? Do you remember?
I went with him to go pick up Chance, before they went missing, like the week before.
So was it around Christmas then?
Yes.
Yeah. And nothing seemed out of the ordinary? He didn't really have any concerns about anything?
No, that's when he was telling me about how he wanted to make a life with her.
Yeah. So when did you first hear that Dub and Chance were missing and that Latricia had been found dead?
Janice Thorpe, who is Dub's, I guess, aunt, called me. I was in Three Rivers and called me as soon as, or probably the next day, as soon as they found out everything. She called and told me, and I immediately went up there.
So what did you think right away about where Dub and Chance were?
Well, when we got there, the house that he was living in, there was no police or anything there. Like he had just nothing hastily packed or anything. Everything is in place like it should be, just like in his truck. So I thought something immediately was wrong.
Yeah. Did you see any kind of signs of a struggle or anything in the house?
I did not, but that was not the house that she was killed in.
Oh, okay.
That was the one in Maxwell.
Okay. And so you did check out Dub's semi that, not the truck that he had left in or was taken, right? His semi truck.
Yeah, his semi was parked there at his house in Maxwell, yes.
But everything seemed fine in there.
All his checkbooks were in there, all his clothes were in there, just like he just stepped out of it, yes.
Mm-hmm. So then what did you do to help with the search?
We have a friend, his name is Jason Smith, and he came with his helicopter, and we flew it for 2 days, flew around there. I knew that the ex-husband, run equipment for the county.
Yeah.
So I was looking for, my immediate thoughts were, he's buried somewhere out there, and the guy has access to county equipment.
So you were looking for like where dirt had been turned over and perhaps something buried.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes. As the days and weeks went on, did you start to wonder what could have happened? Did you ever think that Dub would be on the run with Chance?
Never.
Yeah.
I always have, and I don't think Dub and Chance, I don't think they made it. They sure weren't on a run.
Yeah. And it was just speculation because he was a truck driver that it would be easy for him to get a job, I think, initially.
Well, yeah, but they stand out like,
Yeah.
And that's how they focused on the searching for it, and that's how they kept focused on there, and the trail kept getting colder and colder, and the police department really dropped the ball doing that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't listen. They didn't listen to anything else.
Have you ever spoken to Latricia's ex about the disappearance?
No. I don't think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think of all of these years about the idea that Dub has been, was assumed for so long to have killed Latricia and either killed or took off with Chance? I'm sure as a friend that's really aggravating, frustrating.
Well, it's aggravating that neither family can get closure because the police were not even open to that option.
Yeah.
There were so many things that could have been done different by the police department, and now, they'll never get closure because it's, I don't know how many years it's been, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. And just because Dub and Latricia had a few fights out in public, okay, well, he must have snapped one day and killed her. But okay, Thad, well, I really appreciate you talking to me. I think it's important to get someone that knew Dub and his thoughts on everything and to tell us the kind of person that Dub was. So,
well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I had reached out to Gay in early 2022 to touch base as I was a guest on the Unfound podcast where I spoke about this case. She then told me she had learned something that surprised her and that would further show that Dub wasn't on the run with his son. She had discovered that Dub was about to take her to court to fight for full custody of Chance. She had no idea he had been planning this, but she was shown the filing from the court. In a chilling twist, the paperwork for the request of custody change was actually filed the same day that Latricia White's body was found and that Dub and Chance were discovered missing. When I reached out to Gay again recently to find out if she wanted to appear on the podcast, she declined due to various things she was dealing with currently, as well as just the emotional toll talking about her son does take on her. She, as always, though, was very helpful in telling me everything she knew about the case, and I was surprised to learn there has been some activity in the investigation in the last few years. She couldn't really tell me everything she'd learned, not knowing if it should be public knowledge, but she did say that they did do a one-day search with cadaver dogs in October of 2022 near Latricia White's house. Unfortunately, no remains were found. She also believes police have once again interviewed the person who was thought to be a suspect in this case, but it seems there's just not enough evidence currently to charge him with the crime. The events that happened during the holiday season in 1993 are heartbreaking. It appears that 3 innocent people lost their lives that day, and 3 families have suffered endless pain because of it. Latricia's family, for the person who callously took her life and has never had to pay for it. Dub and Chance's family, for having to live a life of uncertainty, searching for their loved ones, then dealing with the fact, many years later, that their loved ones probably died a violent death and still have no remains located to return to them. Chance's mother was given a life sentence that day that doesn't appear will ever end. What was Gay Walshak guilty of? The answer is simple: nothing. She was trying her best to navigate a difficult situation, to, in spite of her own issues with her ex, do what she could to maintain a positive relationship between Chance and his father. Her letting him stay a few days extra was evidence of that. Gay wishes she could recall more of that final phone call she had with Chance that day, but she didn't know how important it would end up being. Sadly, she had no way of knowing while speaking to him that it was to be his last Christmas. That concludes the podcast on Dub and Chance Wackerhagen. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. It is one word, Lost and Found Podcast. I try to have a new podcast posted every 2 weeks. As always, you can find all of my articles as well as links to my latest podcasts on my website at Lost and Found Blogs. And you can contact me via email at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo.com. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.